Welcome back, ladies.
Hey,
We're
hey.
back.
Oh, so glad to be here. We have so much to talk about today. Before we officially get started on the Contract Podcast, I just wanted to mention, so just recently there's a report that came out by Goldman Sachs where they're talking about laid off tech workers and just how bad the market is going to be for them. So they're saying like there's they should expect a lengthy job search because their skill sets are becoming obsolete as a result of AI. How do we feel about that?
It's following a trend. We've been seeing this. It's, the layoffs at, Block, layoff at Oracle most recently, right? Uh,
Amazon.
Amazon. So it really is interesting. I've been thinking about that. Folks that have had previously, I would say, very specialized, deep technical skill that is being replaced now by the bot, if you will. The
Right.
great,
I
AI.
think the message is that we can do that on our own or get it somewhere else cheaper. We can let the computers do it. That's what's scary to me.
Yeah.
So the question for me is what's left?
Yeah, it made me think about one of my more recent roles and how AI can displace, right? I was in learning and performance, and there were people that had spent their entire careers in learning experience design, learning the different
Mhm.
platforms, right? How do I do a rise versus other types of technologies to build these training and onboardings? I'm working on a project now for a client, and we're using AI to be the mechanism for the learning. And I just have to
Wow.
make sure that I'm loading in parameters, not even full drawn out content. So things that would have previously taken me weeks, perhaps, to produce a finished product, it's taken me literally hours to
Wow.
complete. And it's much more robust
Mhm.
than I ever could have thought about. And so I think about the seismic shift that is happening because of
And
AI,
it's happening.
right?
It's happening so fast.
Yeah,
And I think it's a great segue into what we're talking about today, right?
It is.
it absolutely is. And, we've been talking specifically in the last few episodes about the role of AI and how that is making some very significant shifts, right? But at the same time, it is so important that with the rise of the technology, the advancement of the technology, that you should have a same or even greater advancement or doubling down on the human side. There's human qualities, particularly we talked about judgment, empathy, moral courage. These are things that can't be replaced by a computer. These are inherently human characteristics. And so today, what I would love for us to do is to get practical for our listeners. Yes, everyone is grappling with what is this AI kind of takeover? What does that mean for me? And what I would love for our listeners to leave is to feel that it's not something that's happening to me, but it's something I need to be aware of,
Mhm.
have a little bit of a sense of urgency, but you still need me,
Hmm.
right? And the competencies are really, those human competencies are what is going to make the difference, no matter how far the technology goes. So when I think about how we can frame this in a way for folks to understand, think about it in terms of technology. We talk about tech stacks. These are
Mhm.
the groupings, if you will, of technologies that work together to perform in a certain way. Let's talk about the competency stack.
Okay.
What are the layers, if you will, of competencies that people really need to hone, focus on, and develop that can create actual advantage? And three is always an easy number. I think in three is a lot to maintain. So let's think about it and give folks a frame with three layers: a foundation, let's say a bridge, and then what is that top layer that could really be that differentiator? Eva, think about the foundation. How would you describe a foundational layer of competency?
So when we talk about foundational layer, we're talking about the mindset,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
And so we've got a couple of things to consider there: intellectual curiosity, learning agility, resilience. So learning agility. So how quickly can you acquire, learn new skills? How open are you to it,
Yeah,
right? So you got to have that openness to
absolutely.
even require to acquire the new skills. But that's gonna be critical. Yeah, if you are hopeful that things will just kind of stay the same, you're gonna get left behind. So you
Mhm.
have to have that learning agility.
Yep.
You have to be curious. You have to be curious enough to um, sort of want to even play with the tools that are there to learn more about them, to try to understand how you can use them. So have that intellectual curiosity, and just being open to new ideas and things of that nature, and how you should use a tool so that you can get the best output from it. And then have a growth mindset, have that resilience, and just know that the tool is learning and growing, you're learning and growing. So I think those are some of the really critical elements of that mindset layer, that forms that foundation.
Well, once you have a foundation, you need a house, but there's something
Mhm.
that comes in between. It's the bridge. So when I think about the bridge competencies, I think about these are the things that may be thought of to um, as a place where I think the human strengths that we talked about a bit and the AI capabilities really come together. This is where they intersect. These competencies likely represent, I think, the highest values that employers are looking for to
Yeah.
find in people. This is really
It's a thing that's getting done.
this is the
Yeah,
thing that's getting
Yeah.
done.
yeah.
Okay, this is where the glue starts to work. So the first bridge I think about is critical thinking and verification.
Mhm.
Can you critically look at a piece of data and know that if it's accurate, mostly accurate,
Mhm.
really wrong?
Right.
um, can you validate the information? Can you challenge the assumptions that went into getting the result? And can you strategize based on what you see or what AI has generated? For example, we're doing content creation here. We could have used AI generated copy, but it's the application and the examples that we're bringing to it that really make it live, right?
Yep.
Right.
The second bridge that I think about is, I'll say, AI fluency. Here, I don't mean coding or programming in the traditional sense. Really, what I'm talking about is the conversational and operational comfort with the tools, understanding what AI can do,
Mhm.
what it can't do, of course, and also how to direct it most purposefully. A lot of data will result if you
And maybe
if you
even what
search.
it shouldn't do. Like,
That's
Right.
even more
don't let it
important.
replace your thinking.
That's sometimes the scary part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Some reports that I've seen show that employers are changing almost 70% faster in occupations where AI is being utilized. That's a lot of
Mhm.
change, and the fluency isn't a one-time achievement, something that folks have to continually search for and seek.
Yeah, and that goes back down to that foundation of
Mhm.
curiosity,
Mhm.
right? And that
They're
growth
all related.
mindset. Absolutely.
Great example. The third bridge and last one I'd like to just for us to think about is data literacy. This is the ability to read, interpret, and make decisions using the data. So, what do I do with it now that I have all of
Mhm.
this
Right.
information? And you don't have to be a data scientist like we talked about before, but as organizations integrate AI into their core operations, data literacy has emerged as one of the three essential competencies that will define professional success in the coming decade. Now, along with critical thinking and human centered skills.
Yep.
So, these bridge competencies are really important of saying, how do I leverage? How do I connect the two together? But they may not be the total differentiators. Amber, I know you've given a lot of thought to some of those kind of competencies.
Absolutely. And if we think about this, the stack or the roof on the house, if
Mhm,
you will, what takes you from good to great?
mhm,
From a good performer to an exceptional performer. And I think those differentiator competencies, let's frame it as leadership layer. Not that you have to be the technical leader in that organization, but it's a leadership mindset. So again, that strand of is starting with the mindset, then how you start applying that with those bridge
yeah.
competencies. And so that leadership, When in that category, I think of higher order type of things such as systems thinking,
Okay.
how things connect, anticipation of what could happen, and then what are the mitigators there. Human centered communication. Again, you can get all the data and some great outputs, but still need to speak with other humans and put it in
Yeah.
a way that builds trust, right? Because the speed of trust is the speed of business. Um, Cross-functional collaboration is another really important space that kind of goes back to the systems piece, and even strategic imagination. What is possible? How might we? These are things that I think from a design thinking perspective, you start off with this question of how might we do something. In Agile, it's, well, let's do a prototype. Let's test this out and let's try this. And if this didn't work, let's tweak here and continue. It's a constant learn, uh,
Constant
recalibrate and go,
iterations.
right? Iterations,
Mhm.
right? But let's pause here for a second and put it in the context of what's happening in the workplace today. We started off this podcast today about Goldman Sachs. Thousands, literally thousands of people have recently been displaced directly because of AI. And just think about the many, many thousands, I would easily say, of people that would, and honestly, not consider themselves digital natives, right?
Mhm.
They may
Yeah.
even be a little bit resistant or greatly resistant to, this kind of usage of tools. There's still a very pervasive us versus
Yeah.
them type of concept. So when you think about folks that are maybe mid-career or feeling left behind, what are the competencies, particularly in this top of the house, if you will, that you feel could really be something folks need to latch on to make sure that they maintain that competitive edge?
Yeah, I'm gravitating towards the human-centered communication.
Mhm.
Um, so AI is not going to replace the human being and work that needs to be done. It's going to change how work. It
Mhm.
is changing, not going
Mhm.
to. It is changing how work gets done.
Mhm.
But there are human elements and
Yeah.
components of what we set out to accomplish that will be needed and will continue to be needed. So
Mhm.
understanding and communicating nuance, being
Mhm.
able to persuade others, negotiation. So those are human interactions,
Yeah.
human exchanges, and so that will still be needed to maintain competitive advantage, especially in leadership level abilities, um, areas, industries, sales, customer service, complex negotiations. You're not
Mm.
going to be able to insert AI to negotiate a
Likely
complex
not.
deal.
Yeah, right.
Likely
You
not.
know, like that's just not
Yeah.
going to happen. So yeah, I definitely the human-centered communication, that's the one that
That's a
speaks
good
to
one.
me.
One that speaks to me is really this idea of cross-functional collaboration. I'm old enough to remember, as we all are, a time where most companies incented folks for working across functions and being able, to your point, Eva, to communicate so that if a complex project was on the table,
Mhm.
there was no drop off,
Yeah.
right? And usually you would have to work with finance and accounting and IT, of course. And I recall all of the comments about, we're just not speaking the same language.
Mhm.
So this cross-functional collaboration piece really speaks to me because it merges, and AI can help us do this. It merges the highly technical with some things that are less technical. I
Yeah.
won't say non-technical, but less technical. And the goal is, at the end of the day, the product is better informed and a better product that's suited for the company
Mhm.
because we've handled the whole waterfront, the technical pieces, the skill sets that are a little bit softer maybe, and we've looked at it from a more holistic perspective.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and that really, for me, double clicks on the systems thinking. I mentioned that a little bit, that it's thinking about the whole picture, how things work together, being able to anticipate how AI will change workflows.
Yeah.
And before you can anticipate, you have to understand the workflows,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah.
kind of like you said, that cross functional piece. Do I know how my work intersects with Tony's work, with Eva's work,
Yeah.
with other areas, right? Do I, understand how a change in automation that is inevitably going to happen?
Impact something
And
upstream or downstream.
absolutely, and not just in my area, but the whole
Mhm.
organization. So it's this ability to lift up, kind of above the whole the fray, if you will, to look across the water to see not just where the puck is going, but also see the gears and how they intersect, how the teeth of the gears
Exactly.
coming together. Folks that can build this mindset, so at the foundation that you pointed out, Eva, have those bridge skills, and then really apply those at an organizational kind of level, understanding how you fit and how together we advance and
Mhm.
individually we can advance, right? Those are the folks that are leveraging AI, but also uh, double downing on the human side, right? It's those human competencies. How do we use this tool of AI in a way that advances both the individual and the organization? And so we can talk, for hours, I'm sure, on that the topic of competencies. But again, for our listeners, we said we're going to get practical. So let's get a little tactical. Think about some tool sets. Where and how can one start building AI tools? Not everyone has the time or resource to like go to the local community college or sign up for like a certificate program. That's at a university, but there are really lots of tools that are available that are very low to no cost and very limited time. When I think about just maybe some basic things, some